When your cars were being picked up from public spaces and gated societies by authorities in the national capital, we raised your issue, amplified your voice, questioned the Delhi Babu's high-handedness. And today, it's a big win for lakhs of Delhiites. Days after our relentless campaign, your voices have been heard. The Delhi High Court has come to the citizens' rescue and has ordered that old cars that were seized by the Transport Department will be released within a week. Now, batting for Delhiites, the High Court has called for cars to be released on an undertaking by petitioners that they will not ply them on the roads of the national capital. The High Court has also slammed AAP ki Sarkar, saying that we are not living in a dictatorship. Talking tough to the Aam Aadmi Party government, the High Court said the transport body's order caused chaos and confusion and that no law allows seizure and non-release of vehicles. Now, it has also set a 2-week deadline for submitting the undertaking. Meanwhile, the Transport Commissioner has said that he hasn't seen the court order yet. The High Court's order comes just days after the Delhi government halted the scrappage drive. And now, we here at Mirror Now demand action against the Delhi Babus for not paying heed to citizens' pleas and carrying on with that illegal drive, for harassing and harrowing the citizens, for ignoring their pain. Will erring Delhi Babus be booked? Will they be held accountable for harassing the citizens? Will they pay for the damage to the properties? We will continue to ask these questions here until the Delhi government acts on this. Now, earlier, the Delhi Transport Minister Kailash Gehlot talked tough with his colleagues and issued orders to the Transport Department to stop seizing and subsequently scrapping cars that are parked along roads and outside the houses of citizens. The Transport Minister labelled the actions as invasive and has directed the Transport Commissioner to frame a policy after consulting the government. Now, most significantly, we would like to highlight a very important aspect of this absolutely brazen, unlawful drive by the Transport Department. The very NGT order, which is often quoted by the department to defend its actions, does not sanction seizure of vehicles. The NGT order clearly says that vehicles beyond the end-of-life span must be towed and fined, not impounded by the Transport Department. That has gone ahead and done so with thousands of vehicles. Even the High Court, while granting relief to the petitioner, cleared the air regarding a National Green Tribunal order of 2015 that had ordered that the end-of-life vehicles could not be parked in public places. The High Court said the Delhi Transport Department had distorted the original order and there was no law passed by any lawful authority that prohibits the keeping of such a car, which the petitioner and his or her family deeply desire to. Now, when it comes to damages caused to vehicles in the process of towing them away, the petitioners demanded compensation towards repairing that damage. While rightfully claiming a violation of their fundamental rights, the petitioners said that the Transport Department should face the court-ordered probe for its seizure drive as it took away cars without following any due process laid down by the law.
This is just a beginning of a very good, you can say, system of releasing the cars. You see, the basic, when the law was made, it was made only to control the pollution. Whereas they are not lifting, you see, polluting cars. They are lifting only age-based cars. Where age-based is nowhere in the world. This law is nowhere in the world. There are nearly more than 10 lakh senior citizens in this NCR area who will be badly affected. Some have already been affected because their cars have been lifted. Senior citizens drive car only to a limited mileage. Like Usha Chatrathaman, who was the managing director of Noida authorities, her Honda City was driven only for 25,000 or 30,000 kilometers. That is only the running period. It was just like brand new. And it was lifted because of 15 years and some few months. Now she is a retired 75 years old lady. Where will she go, you see?
All right, let me take that across to my guests this evening. I'm joined by Mr. Nakul Narang, who's an old car owner, and Mr. Omesh Saigal, ex-Chief Secretary of Delhi. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for talking with Mirror Now. First, I'll come to you, Nakul. This, of course, comes as a huge relief to Delhiites who had been extremely aggrieved with the kind of actions that were taking place on ground by the authorities.
Yeah, thank you for having me over on the show. See, the thing is, the entire rule of banning cars which have completed 10 years in case of diesel and 15 years in case of petrol, it's completely flawed. The fitness of the vehicle has to be considered. The pollution norms have to be considered. Government sells a car with a 15 years of registration certificate. How can that car suddenly be asked to, be junked at the age of 10 years? Is the government reducing or refunding the 33% of the ex-showroom price and the taxes that we have paid? Because the life is axed by 33%. If you consider 15%, consider from 15 years to 10 years, who's paying that 33% of the amount that we are losing? And if you look at the pollution in the last 5 years, has it reduced after making this kind of a decision? Every year, October, November, December, we see the same situation. Last year, BS4 diesel cars, which were as new as 2020, were banned from plying on the roads. People were fined 20,000 rupees for violating this rule. What kind of a country and city are we living in? Across the globe, if you see, the fitness of the vehicle is considered as the criteria. Nowhere the age of the vehicle is the cap. If you want, you have to inspect the cars. You have to see their condition. How can you say that the car is good for junk without even checking it? What rationale does it have? And what about the pollution that is generated from the thermal plants on which Delhi is highly dependent on for electricity? What about generator sets? What about commercial vehicles? If you compare a commercial vehicle with the personal car, a commercial car or a vehicle might be used for 10 hours or 15 hours or 18 hours a day. But a private car hardly gets used for 15 hours in maybe 20 days. So this entire decision has to be relooked.
Okay.
The 10-year ban on the diesel cars and the 15-year on petrol cars is completely flawed, and the government needs to revisit the decision.
Okay. Point taken, Nakul. Let me take this across to Pinky Anand, who's also joining us in this discussion. Former ASG Pinky Anand, thank you very much for talking with us on Mirror Now. Ma'am, this of course comes at a time when citizens have been extremely aggrieved on the kind of action that they have experienced or witnessed for their friends and family along, across Delhi and the NCR region. Today, with the Delhi High Court saying that, these cars need to be returned and that they should not, with the, of course, condition that they will not ply on the roads of the national capital. I want to understand from you, how does an authority in Delhi decide on their own that they will go against the NGT order, which only says that vehicles, the end-of-life vehicles, can only be towed and fined. But here the case was very different.
See, ultimately, this has an entire history to the entire situation. So, Vardhaman Kaushik is when the NGT had directed that diesel vehicles over 10 years will not ply, and 15-year-old petrol vehicles will not fly. And incidentally, at one point, the government had made a big pitch for the fact that common citizens should not be hampered. But this is the order that came out. And this order itself is under challenge in the Supreme Court by the government. That's another matter. Having said that, then the government ultimately, based on the guidelines, the orders passed by the NGT, which had become to that extent final, passed various orders which included also the scrapping rules. And under the question of end-of-life vehicles. And end-of-life vehicles itself, which were deregistered, could be taken and scrapped. And the idea was to actually benefit the people who are being otherwise prejudiced, and secondly, to benefit the environment. These are the principal concerns that actually confront us as of today, particularly with Delhi facing its serious problems on pollution and environmental hazards, etc. So, question of if it's not deregistered, yes, it doesn't come within the purview of removing and putting up to scrap. That itself is something contrary possibly. However, the principle of going to scrapping on unregistered or deregistered vehicles is there.
Okay, ma'am, the fact that people have been so extremely affected on ground with this situation, but as Nakul was suggesting that, one, what's the criteria of defining, what's the end, what sort of a vehicle is an end-of-life vehicle, and has it really contributed to the reduction of pollution, which is the primary reason that is given for such an order to take place?
Shreya, I'll tell you, I must be very honest with you. When I argued the matter for the government in the NGT, one of the grounds was that, really speaking, it's a minuscule effect that removing of this small number of vehicles, because the problem is the Motor Vehicles Act itself did not define end of life in that sense, because it is based upon its fitness and other criteria. So it is something which is very hard to digest, and I appreciate that. What had happened, however, was because pollution had become absolutely phenomenally high. The NGT, rightly or wrongly, because it is in appeal before the Supreme Court, though it hasn't been decided or taken up further. The principle was that the citizen should benefit. So it wasn't for individual citizens' benefit, it was for the reducing pollution. But again, having said that, I do know that when we confronted this issue, we did point out, for the common man's sake, that ultimately the effect of removing the 10-year and 15-year-old petrol and 10-year-old diesel vehicles would not really have any substantial impact on the reducing the pollution. So really, it's a catch-22 situation. And what you say, as I said, is something that we discuss across, that when you don't have the Motor Vehicles Act, which itself defines an end to vehicles or end-of-life vehicles, because of its years, because that is not the criteria. The criteria is otherwise pollution controls, other controls, fitness controls of the cars, which really have to prevail. So these are very touchy questions. However, as things stand, the order remains, and that is what is being implemented by the government as such on deregistered vehicles. So when Delhi government takes its action, it's a question mark.
Okay, ma'am, last question to you. You said this has been a touchy topic, and I'm going to ask you another touchy question, which is, the compensation that the victims of such actions are asking for now, whether that would be possible in the procedure which will now be followed in the courts.
Honestly speaking, when in this case, as has been pointed out, I do not know the accuracy of that statement. The Delhi government has removed not deregistered vehicles, which is what was prescribed in the policy. Yes, for wrongful action, authorities are liable, and it could be assessed and should be assessed. However, the amount of so-called loss is a question mark area, because these vehicles are not usable as such. So I think that would be taken into account also while assessing action. But authorities also must act as per rules.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Pinky Anand, for joining us at Mirror Now and helping us understand the issue better. And of course, we'll have to see how that really pans out for the citizens, for those who have been agreed. But let me also continue this discussion with my guests who have joined. Nakul and Mr. Omesh Saigal continue to join us. Mr. Saigal, coming to you, this, apart from the High Court order, and within that High Court order, we also had, like I said earlier, the court mentioned that, this is completely against what the NGT says, that the authorities can tow and fine such vehicles, but they cannot, pick them up randomly from public places and even outside the homes of people and then scrap them and, or probably just take 2 or 3 parts out of it and, sort of damage the vehicle. How do you see this really being implemented on ground in these past few months that Delhi authorities have, done so, and the citizens have been extremely affected by it?
There are 2 or 3 aspects to the issue that you are raising. The first aspect is the legal aspect. Can a vehicle which is beyond its end of life, as determined by the NGT and not yet changed by the Supreme Court, can it be allowed to function within the territory, within the NCR? Now, functioning is one thing, being parked is another thing. So, technically speaking, you can say if a car is parked here, it is not functioning. Then why is it parked here? If it is not to function, Delhi cannot, NCR cannot become a parking site. So if it is not to function here, it's better to sell it and let it go out of the NCR. So, and especially if it is parked in the public place. If it is parked in the public place and it is not allowed to ply also, it becomes a nuisance for the authorities who own that public place. So, the removal of that vehicle is a must. Now, whether it should be removed by the owner of the vehicle or it should be removed by the government or by the transport authorities, that is the issue which I think you are discussing. And if it is to be removed, the NGT says that you can remove it, tow it away and fine. You cannot destroy it. You cannot, now when you say tow it away where? Tow it away to a spot where legally it is permissible. So if you tow it away from one part of Delhi to another part of Delhi, you are actually compounding the crime. From one area of an illegal parking, you are now putting it in another area of illegal parking. So I think these are open issues, and we should not prejudge the action of the Delhi government, of the transport department, because but the issue remains: is it correct? Is it correct to just decide a vehicle is polluting just because it is 15 years old, a petrol vehicle? I mean, the case was mentioned of a particular officer. My case is similar. I also had an old car, a Toyota, running beautifully, run only 25, 30. I had to sell it and buy an expensive car at 10 times the cost, at a price I could not afford. So the point is, earlier also there was a law which said after 15 years, you have to get a fitness certificate. So you had to get. So it is not that 15 years is something which has been arbitrarily decided. The earlier law before the NGT order was that after 15 years, you have to get a fitness certificate from the transport department. Now here, that could have been made stricter. That could have been made, the courts could have said that the fitness certificate will be given only to vehicles which are of this particular pollution standard. Now, that would have been a much better order rather than an omnibus order which says any vehicle about 15 years old. It has been rightly said that private vehicles run for maybe 20, 30 hours in the month, whereas public vehicles run for so many hours in the week, more than so many hours in the week. So private vehicles should be given a different standard of judgment than the public vehicles. Now here, the first aspect is it is legal. So what can you do? The transport authority has no authority to change the law. Now the law has been determined by the NGT. Supreme Court has not yet set it aside. And I don't think it has agreed to set it aside, even for senior citizens. I think it's very unfair. At least those who are 80 and above, don't force them to buy a new car, because I don't know how many years of life they have left to be able to,
and
to buy a new car.
And not just senior citizens, Mr. Saigal, there must be several people who are not at that point in time, willing to buy a new car, spend money. They don't have, the required amount, the required wherewithal to buy a new car. Not just senior citizens, of course, they are also most impacted, but there might be people who don't have the kind of, wherewithal that is needed to buy a new car that time.
Right. You are totally right. What I am saying is that within these two categories, the case of the senior citizens is more urgent. I am not saying the case of the others is not justified. It is all justified. So if you have to take a decision, at least for 80 plus people, take a decision that if you are 80 plus and the car has been in your name for a certain number of years, then let not be the younger people transfer it to you. Let us say you are holding this car for the last 5 years or 10 years. Then this rule does not apply to you. At least that could be said. Now, yes, the rule should be changed for all. That's the Supreme Court has to decide. I think with the chote muh ki badi baat that if I now say it should be done or it should not be done, I think the Supreme Court will decide in its wisdom and we will have to obey that order. But in the meantime, the government should not be harshly judged. The transport authorities should not be harshly judged because you tow away a car, you say tow away from where? To where? So if you are towed away to an area which is outside the NCR, you say, oh, my car is damaged, my car is damaged. The point is, yes, give a chance to the authorities. So the High Court order is totally correct, which says that give them the chance, take an undertaking from them that you will not ply it within the city. And in these 2.5 months or 3 weeks that you are allowing them, please tow it away outside the NCR. If they do that, you sell it outside NCR, the authorities allow that, take permission from them, sell it outside, or dispose it off to someone who is willing to sell it outside. Now, these are things which are...
all right. So, Mr. Saigal, the process that was followed is what is being questioned. I've heard stories of citizens being affected by these actions. The authorities suddenly come, they pick up their old cars and they tow them away and they don't know what happens to their cars later. So those have been the kind of concerns that we have heard in these past few months. I'm also joined by somebody who has in fact experienced this on his own. Ravikant Indoria is joining us. Ravikant, thank you very much for talking with us on Mirror Now. What happened with you? Tell us what has been your experience.
Ma'am, it has been a pathetic experience, which I have shared earlier as well, and this actually reflects, of the overall mindset, which is behind authorities, resorting to this kind of a thing with the Delhi residents. The root of it is, the way this entire policy has been implemented, and it is because of the corruption. It is not because of any concern for the vehicular pollution which is happening in Delhi, or because of any other reason. It has been, I think there has been some connivance, at a level of government and the scrapping agencies. They simply took advantage of the Supreme Court and NGT order on the old vehicles, which are about 10 years and 15 years of age. Now, in order to take advantage of that, they started, picking these vehicles and say that, since it is no more valid license, it will be taken away, and there is no other way but only to scrap it. But to scrap it after, number one, how you can take a vehicle without a notice. So none of the Delhi residents have been given, a week's notice minimum, before their vehicles were taken away. So you actually don't get a chance to, to show your papers, to actually show whether you have a valid RC or not, whether you have sufficient space for parking a vehicle inside your premises or not. That is point number one. So, they will come suddenly. I think a day or two before they take the vehicles, they do a recce. And then they earmark the vehicles. Suddenly, on the next day, they will come. And they'll normally come after 11:30, when the working people have already gone. And only ladies would be there inside the house because the kids might have gone to school or colleges. And their methodology has been to simply scare them, and in such a way that they are not able to answer. Simply take away the vehicle, and after that, what happens? That is the real crux of this. They offer you just 1/10 of the market value of the scrap vehicle. Any vehicle that you have, the same vehicle, even if you want to scrap it, let's say, if I have a vehicle, it has lived its age. I don't want to renew it for anything else, or I don't even want to take an NOC. But they will simply not. And if you want to sell it in the market to an authorized scrapper, the value that you will get, as compared to that value, these scrappers which are empaneled by MCD or by Transport Department will offer you just 1/10 of that price. This 900% extra profit which these scrap mafias were making, it might have been distributed among the authorities. Some money has been taken away by the scrap mafia. Some might have gone to the local police, because the local policeman also comes. I don't know how the system works. But the entire objective of this entire exercise after NGT and Supreme Court order was to target 53 lakh vehicles of Delhites and offer them peanuts in return. At the time of taking away of the vehicles, they will tell you you'll get the market price. But when you actually get the payment, it is just 1/9, 1/10. So you actually lose out, hugely. If your vehicle, you can get easily 50,000 rupees, they will simply offer you 10,000. If your vehicle can get 90,000 rupees, so that's the reason they will not give you, a notice in advance. That is point number one. Point number two, because there was this extraordinary profit and this extortion and this, this loot was going on, and it was allowed by the government departments, misusing the Supreme Court and NGT orders, it started happening in such a manner that is the scrap mafia, along with the MCD and transport department officials and the local police officials, they started entering gated private societies. They knew it very well. It's not a public place. It is not open to a public. It is open only for the residents, and the residents only have a right to park their vehicles. They knew it very well. But they started entering it because, it was an extraordinary profit that they were making, extraordinary money that they were making per vehicle. If you make 50,000 rupees on 53 lakh vehicles of Delhi residents, you can easily understand what kind of money that they were targeting at. So they were started entering these societies. Number two, they started picking even the vehicles which had valid RC. In my case, my vehicle had a valid RC of Maharashtra state, which is valid till August 2027. It is still there with me. I have the original RC. But they will not listen to you. Why? Because such an extraordinary money that they were, getting out of it. So, people, I've met the people because after this, we have been meeting the people. People with NOC, their vehicles have been taken away. Yes.
Yeah. These are some serious accusations and some extremely harrowing experiences that the citizens are sharing. I want to take this across to Mr. Saigal. Mr. Saigal, this is the point that I was making, that you might have an order such as this, but its implementation has been extremely dubious. People like Nakul and Ravikanji have both experienced some extremely quote-unquote suspicious kind of a process that is implemented on ground. People are coming into gated societies. These are not public spaces. Then they're picking up cars without, even checking the documents. And they're being told that your cars are old and that's why we're picking up, and later no information is given. And this is all done without a prior notice.
I'm on top of it, if I can add. To get
see, this
my
point about Maharashtra registered
back,
vehicles being...
Yeah. Ravikanji, I'll come back to you. Yeah, Mr. Saigal, please go on.
I was saying that vehicles which are not registered in Delhi, as the one that has been mentioned just now, the Maharashtra RC, it is not clear whether such vehicles can ply in Delhi. Because if these vehicles are plied in Delhi, all that a Delhi resident has to do is to go and buy a vehicle from outside the NCR. Now, this is something which will defeat the very purpose of which the order has been passed by the NGT. So, whether such a vehicle should be allowed to stay or should be removed, I have no personal views on this. I personally feel that the order of the NGT is wrong and it must be changed. But so long as it is there, how do you blame the authorities from implementing that order? In fact, it is they are duty-bound to implement that order. If they don't implement the order, they will be failing in their
No, Mr. Saigal, we are not blaming them for implementing it. We are blaming them for the kind of process that is followed. The implementation procedure that is followed on ground has been extremely harrowing for the citizens of Delhi NCR.
The car is 50. The car is 15 years old. Everybody knows that a 15-year-old older car cannot ply in Delhi. If you are still holding a car from outside, registered outside Delhi in Delhi, you are breaking the law. You are still breaking the law. I think the law is wrong, but I am still saying that you are breaking the wrong or whatever right the law. The law does not allow any vehicle to ply here. It does not say only registered vehicles in the NCR. It says any vehicle anywhere which is more than 15 years old will not be allowed to ply in the NCR. Wrong or right, this is what has to be implemented. So whether you give a notice to the owner or not is not the point. The notice which now the High Court requires you to give is that within 2 weeks you'll take the car out. You will not be allowed to keep the car here. What will happen then on the 16th day? After you have given an undertaking to the government that I will move this car out in 15 days and you don't move the car out, then what happens on the 16th day? So in these 15 days, and these so many years have gone since these orders have come, people know the 15-year rule. It is not that it is secret, that notices have to be given to every single individual. It is generally known that the law is presumed to be known. Citizens cannot say that I don't know there was a law against theft, so I'm going to commit theft. I have been given not a notice not to commit theft. Sorry.
Okay,
the law is
Ravikant
law,
wants to
and
respond.
You must know the law,
Ravikant ji, go ahead. Omesh Saigal ji making a point that when there exists a law,
the law is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm coming on to that.
Ravikant ji, you want to respond? Mr. Saigal making a point that when the law is there existing, then why do you need a notice? You should have known this prior and you should have acted upon it.
Yeah, so I'm coming to that, in order to respond to Mr. Saigal. See, the law says that you cannot ply the vehicle, which has crossed 10 years and 15 years in case of diesel and petrol vehicles. Okay, and the law also says that you cannot park the vehicle at a public land. Okay. Now, in my case and in case of the other residents of my society, there were 18-20 vehicles taken. The vehicles were parked inside. I have never plied that vehicle of mine. I had another car with a valid RC of Delhi, and which is just 2 or 3 years old. I was plying only that car. This car was simply parked. Okay. And it came to Delhi. It came to Delhi only for some medical reasons. Around 7-8 months back, when it was valid, when the 15 years thing was not over. Okay. So with this fitness, I was supposed to take it out. So number one, it was not plying on the road. Number two, it was not parked at the public place. So how come still the authorities came illegally and took away my vehicle? That is my point number one. My point number two is, if their action was valid, why did they release my vehicle? Why did they release my vehicle after 15 or 20 days and took 15,000 rupees extortion money from me? I have lodged a police complaint for this. I need an answer. If their action was right, how my vehicle can be released? My point number three is, as Mr. Saigal is saying, the law is there. The law says that I cannot ply the vehicle and I cannot park it on the public land. Does the law say that a vehicle with a valid RC, with valid fitness from another state, can simply be taken away and scrapped? You will give me notice and ask me to, take it away from NCR because it has, RC of some other state, valid RC. So take it out of NCR. How can you just take away the vehicle and initiate scrapping? So these are some of the questions which clearly indicates how this whole thing has been. I'm again saying it is the misuse of the order from NGT and Supreme Court. The order may not be wrong, and it's in, if you look at the merit, if the vehicle which has crossed the age and if it is not fit, I think it should be scrapped. But if it has crossed the age, but still it is fit, and the concerned RTO is giving a valid registration certificate to it, an extension to it, or Delhi government is giving an NOC to it, how can you take away the vehicle, steal fuel and the front mirror and various parts of the vehicle, and then return it after charging 15,000 rupees extortion money? This shows that the entire exercise has been done to make money out of Delhi citizens. It is not to implement NGT and Supreme Court order.
Okay, Nakul. All right. Nakul, you wanted to make a point. Please go ahead.
Yes. See, the point is that there is a Central Motor Vehicle Act that clearly defines that when a new car is sold, it is supposed to be registered for 15 years. Irrespective of the fact whether it is diesel, it is petrol or CNG. The rule says vehicle's condition will be inspected. If it is found to be fit, then the registration certificate will be extended for another 5 years, right? This rule applies to the entire nation except Delhi NCR. Why are Delhi NCR residents being discriminated? If a car in Rajasthan or let's say West Bengal or Tamil Nadu can apply for 15 years plus 5 years, what is stopping the government for implementing the same rule in Delhi NCR? Why are we discriminating the people? Moreover, the new emission norms, the Euro 6 norms, if you go by the rule book, the pollution levels of a diesel Euro 6 car is equivalent to a petrol Euro 6 car. Day by day, the emission norms are improving, but the rules that are being implemented are so illogical that I really wonder what is government up to? How are decisions being implemented without any research, without any scientific proof, without any rationale to it? The rule is clear. It is not being implemented properly in Delhi NCR. People are harassed. They have to forcefully sell off their assets or their assets are scrapped. Why should people sell off something and buy something when it complies with all the rules? You have a valid registration certificate. You have a pollution certificate. If the government wants, they can inspect the vehicle. We are not saying that we will buy a vehicle that pollutes, but you have to inspect the vehicle. If it meets pollution certificate, if it has a valid document, if all the documents are in place, then why should somebody just scrap its car? What is the fun? Are we getting extra money from Delhi government for purchasing new cars?
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I'm going to request my guests to stay with me.